Israel, a further Israel and Hebrew and Ethiopian connection can be found in the very first book of the Bible, or Moses' Torah, what's also known as the Pentateuch, or the 5 books of Moses. And in our going over the word software and a basic kind of brief tutorial of just setting up the fonts correctly in the word standalone software, that's a good Bible study software, and to recommend that to the Dekam as Amorit, to the disciples, the Talmudim of the King of Kings in our Black Lord and Savior Yeshua HaMoshiach. So I was going over that, and in going over that, we were just showing the search, how to do the search. So when you're over here, we had searched Ethiopia, right? We was able to search Ethiopia right here. Now, of course, you can make this a little bit, you could change the setting, you can make this a little bit longer right here, so you can see this a little bit more. And once again, to re-hit the search, let's re-hit the search, and we have 38 options, right? 38 options. Move this over a little bit in the King James Version of the Bible. So Ethiopia appears in the English 38 times in the Bible. As I say this about, everything that we study, especially when we're looking at from the human or the earthly perspective. If it's Kemet, or if it's Gibbet or Gibt, or ancient Mitzrayim, the different names for ancient Egypt, we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. With the Israelites and the Hebrews, we have the good, right? We have the bad, and we have the ugly. So it's very important that we come to righteousness, properly judging, right? Properly weighing and balancing and study to search these things out, and not to come to false conclusions based on mis or disinformation, because we received a lot of, disinformation, even with the whole COINTELPRO to stop the rise of the Black Messiah. This is why I think this point about Ethiopia is so crucial. So I want to call this vid something to the effect of, Ethiopia, Ethiopia and Israel, right, in the Bible, or being an Israelite. So when we, as elect RasTafari, or Rastafari of the royal order of the Ethiopian Hebrews, when we make those sort of connections, right? When we make these sort of connections with Ethiopia, many will tell us, or many will assert to us, that we are incorrect. And that is based on a certain foreign mind perspective, a certain Gentile perspective that so many black people have been under this pseudo-Abrahamic religion. Because not really, there's a lot of things that we have to clarify, even about the whole race issue, which is still an ongoing issue. Like, are the Hebrews black? Are the Israelites black? Well, we know in the scriptures, if we go to, I think it's Amos 9 and 7. Let's just use the software right here and kind of show this right here. We go to Amos 9 and 7. It's very clear right here in Amos 9 and 7, where it says, "Are ye not as children of the Ethiopians to me?" And we all know how children come about. You see what I'm saying? How children come about for we men and people. You know what I'm saying? It says, "O children of Israel, saith Yehovah, saith Yahweh, Yod He Wahei." And now there's a full stop, there's a period there. We have to note that. Because the idea goes on, but this idea, some put a question mark here, is very, very interesting. Right? This is, right here, this is the way the question mark is, right? And the full stop is right here. Saith, now who is saying this? It is he who be who he be, right? The Almighty is saying this. Now let's go back to the first place in the Bible that we have Ethiopia. All right, go to the first place that we have Ethiopia. And why is this significant? Well, this is significant if you see the second part of our the word software tutorial and installing the Hebrew. When we clicked right here, if you can zoom in right there, you can see it for yourself. It's the H, it's the Strong's number. H is for the Hebrew Old Testament part, the H3568. Now, it says Mackelson's enhanced. So the word software has an enhanced Strong's Greek and Hebrew dictionaries. That means that there's been even more study and research, so it's even deeper, than the previous Strong's version, but it's based on the Strong's. So essentially it's the Strong's Greek and Hebrew dictionary, but as it says, it's enhanced. Now notice this right here, underneath or next to the H3568, it says it has Kaf, Vav, and Shin, or it have the K, the W, and the SH in the Hebrew when read from right to left. Now, this is somewhat it's not really fully transliterated, but in a sense, with the modern pointing of the Hebrew, you see that's Cush, right? Cush, right? Cush. It could either be the Kuwsh or the Ku. The U and the W actually interchange within the sonics of it, the sound of it. Now you see in the parentheses is like a pronunciation guide, Cush. Now the first entry says Cush with a C in the classic Anglo-American way of writing it, Cush. A lot of the older works have C and a lot of the modern ones have a K. The K would be more correct, for literalists and so-called purists. But either way, keep both in mind when you're doing your study. So it has Cush, open bracket, or Ethiopia, close bracket, comma. It says the name of a son of Ham or Kam. This is where we get the root of Kam and Kemet and Chem, so forth and so on. All right, comma, and of his territory. But now notice the second entry. The second entry says also of an Israelite. All right, so this is also the name, it says, of an Israelite. So even that right there, going along with Amos 9 and 7. Right, so we have this right here in Genesis 2 and 13. The first entry we have from the King James perspective of Ethiopia. Now, there's a whole debate about Ethiopia and whether it's Greek, but then even Bobby Hemmett in one of his works we saw recently about the Kemetic mysteries, and speaking, it's an oldie but a goodie, he basically explains that there's a lot of BS that we have inherited, not even inherited, scratch that, slicha, right, that we have been force-fed. There's a lot that we have been force-fed concerning, Ethiopia is a Greek name, so forth and so on, not even recognizing that for the first 200 or more years, the first Greeks were black people, right, were black peoples. Right? Some say Egyptian. They're very heavily influenced by the ancient Kemetic or Ham culture. Same thing with the Romans. Right? Even the ancient European scholars and some of their classical writers all admit that how ironic it was in the position that they found themselves in, that from the people who they got civilization and culture and even the ability to speak, right? They did not know how to speak. They admit, the classical writers, that they learned all of this from the ancient Egyptians and Ethiopians, right? So they learned how to speak. So we have to be very careful. There's really no such thing on a certain level, right? When we're going to origins as a so-called European language that did not directly come out of that root, come out of, we can say, Ethiopia, Africa, but Africa is a later day name. Afruaka, whatever. It's a later day name. We want to get to the root, right? And most people, when they touch on Africa, they don't really touch on the root. That's because they avoid Ethiopia, that missing link right there. So here under Cush, we both get a Hamitic and a Shemitic connection. This is why when we speak about the language and even Amharic and even Hebrew, we find it as an Afro-Shemitic, right? As an Afro-Shemitic language. Afro, right? This is the Ethiopia, the so-called Hamitic part, right? And the Shemitic, right? This is the so-called Hebrew and the Israelite part, right? This is what we mean when we talk about Africa, Asia, right? This Africa-Asia connection. So it's very significant when we start to investigate this right here, right? And find also of an Israelite, right? Also of an Israelite. Now, some would say, oh, this is just one Israelite, right? You know, some who want to strain the eye at a gnat. Let's not forget, right? Amos